I stood at the front door of my childhood home, the familiar facade bearing the weight of so many memories. The worn-out welcome mat was frayed at the edges, and the chipped paint on the doorframe whispered tales of laughter and loss. The air smelled of freshly baked cookies wafting in from the kitchen, teasing my sense of nostalgia like an unwelcome ghost. My mother was in there, likely preparing for dinner, her laughter mingling with the sizzling sounds of food cooking. The closer I moved to the door, the more my heart raced, not only from the sweet aroma but from the tension that filled this place like a thick fog. I could practically feel the expectations bearing down on me, waiting to see what my next step would be. Why do I always do this to myself? I thought, biting my lip. As much as I missed the comfort of home, I dreaded facing my family. Every time we gathered, it felt like stepping into the arena, my resolve pitted against their judgment. I pushed through the door and the warmth enveloped me like a blanket. My mother looked up from the stove, her smile lighting up the room. "Amelia, you made it." She rushed over and embraced me tightly, her familiar scent of vanilla and lavender immediately comforting yet suffocating. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, Mom," I replied, forcing a smile, though I felt the weight of my words drag me down. On the dining table, a spread of my family's favorites was laid out. The smell of rosemary chicken mingled with garlic mashed potatoes. It was supposed to feel like home, but the moment I noticed my parents' eyes glancing towards each other, a chill ran down my spine. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could sense that today's dinner might not just be about food. "Where's your brother and sister?" I inquired, the question hanging heavily in the air. "Running a bit late, as usual," my mother said, her voice tight. Her gaze darted toward the clock hanging on the wall, a symbol of the increasing tension. "They always have to make an entrance, don't they?" "Right," I said, my heart sinking. I knew that wasn't the real issue. It had been months since the last family gathering, each absence feeling more like a wound that refused to heal, and now there was something weighing on everybody's mind. I started to help my mother set the table, trying to distract myself from the unease that was brewing just beneath the surface. Each clink of the silverware echoed my anxiety. Moments later, my sister burst through the door like a hurricane, making an entrance that seemed both practiced and spontaneous. "Sorry, traffic was insane," she exclaimed, her cheeks flushed. My sister always had this ability to dominate a room with her presence. She was always the favored one, and it grated on me, even if I loved her. "Glad you made it," my mother replied tightly, forcing enthusiasm into her voice. I could feel the walls beginning to close in, the atmosphere growing heavier as we all settled at the table. The clatter of dishes being passed around was the only sound that filled the strained silence. I could feel my brother entering the house, his footsteps heavy as he approached. "Did you all start without me?" he joked, sliding into the seat across from me. My brother had this charm, a way of deflecting tension with laughter. But I wondered, would he be able to charm his way through this evening? I just wanted to scream at him that he was part of the mess we were all tangled in, a mess of inheritance, favoritism, and secrets that had neatly woven themselves into the fabric of this family. "Now that we are all here, can we dig in?" my sister said, gesturing to the food. "I am starving." As we served ourselves, the tension felt like molten lava simmering just beneath the surface, ready to explode at any moment. I glanced around the table. My father's brow was furrowed, his smile strained, as he exchanged glances with my mother that spoke of unspoken words and suppressed anger. "Did you get that thing I sent out?" my brother asked, breaking through the tension. I felt a pang in my chest. The thing had been an announcement about the family property and the impending discussion of who would inherit what. It made my insides twist. The family cabin, a place filled with shared laughter and cherished memories, was now a battleground. "What thing?" my sister shot back, annoyance piercing her tone. "Nothing serious, just something about the cabin," he said, trying to brush it off. His nonchalant attitude grated on my nerves, seeping through like an itch I could not scratch. "All I know is that it would be unfair to let one person take control of that property. I think we should discuss it now and get everything in the open." I finally spoke up, my voice quaking with emotion. The air stilled and all eyes were focused on me, a mixture of surprise and irritation. "Seriously, Amelia, this is not the time or place," my sister said, rolling her eyes like I had just suggested a dance party on a battlefield. I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks. My heart raced as I struggled to maintain my composure. "It's always a good time to talk about fairness," I shot back. The simmering conflict was boiling over, and I felt like I had to defend my right to speak up, to be heard. "You all think just because you moved on, I should just sit quietly in the corner. Since when has this family been about silence? Your bitterness is really showing, Amelia." It's pathetic, my sister replied, her voice cold like ice. The room felt like it was shrinking, the walls watching, expecting, and waiting for a reckoning. It was the kind of silence that screamed at you, drawing out shadows of arguments long buried. Pathetic? You think I am the pathetic one? Do you even realize how much this hurts me? My voice cracked and I felt exposed. You both were always favored, not just by our parents but by each other. I get left behind. My brother rolled his eyes this time, leaning back in his chair. You need to let this go. Just because you have issues being the middle child doesn't mean we have to feel guilty, he said nonchalantly, dismissing me like an annoyance. A rush of fury erupted in my chest, my hands shaking as I clenched them into fists. I have fought for this family, for all of you, and I am sick of being cut off. You think I am the only one with the right to talk about the inheritance? It's not just about the money, it's about memories, love. It meant something. The sob lodged in my throat echoed deeply, and I felt the tears welling up. This was more than inheritance, this was about recognition. Amelia, just stop, my father finally spoke, his voice low but firm, the weight of authority behind it. This dinner is not meant to turn into another one of your outbursts. His disappointment felt like a slap to my face, and I went pale, shame flooding over me like icy water. I took a deep breath, trying to come back from the edge. This is not just about me, Dad. It's also about how you both have treated me differently. I deserve a piece of this family, too. My voice steadied, an undercurrent of resolve pushing me forward. This is why we don't discuss these things during dinner. Can we just eat and enjoy the food, Amelia? My mother, the peacemaker, tried to intervene, but her voice lacked the strength to diffuse the tension. No, this isn't just about the food, I argued, feeling forced into a corner. This is about our legacy, our home. You are all deciding my worth based on who gets what. For once, can we just be honest? I felt my heart racing, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Suddenly, my sister slammed her hand on the table, making the silverware rattle. You think you are so entitled because you have been quietly watching from the sidelines, but this is not how you earn respect. Each word was a dagger laced with venom. I could see the anger shimmering in her eyes, tearing furiously at my very core. Earning respect? You think I have? You too. You both think I am invisible, but I am not, I shouted, defiantly, my voice dripping with the hurt I had buried for far too long. Then, in that instant, my brother decided to stand up, his chuckle twisting into something that made my skin crawl. Folks, we have a dramatic moment forming right here, he scoffed, his laughter ringing hollow. Let's all remember, family is about unity, right? Maybe we should be less concerned about the cabin. Probably worth, what, $200,000 at least now? His careless mention of money was like throwing gasoline on an already raging fire. Are you really going to reduce our memories to a dollar amount? I screamed back, my chest tightening as my heart raced. I just don't want to deal with your melodrama, he shot back, the mocking tone stinging deeper than a slap. With raw emotion spilling over, I pushed my chair back and stood up with a sudden jerk that startled everyone. You know what? If you think I don't deserve a say, then maybe I should just leave. My voice trembled with indignation, tinged with the impulse to flee before the moment swallowed me whole. Don't act like you are leaving. Where would you go? My sister spat, but I couldn't take it anymore. The weight of betrayal felt suffocating. The very family I longed to belong to was the same one tearing me apart. As I stormed away from the table, the tension behind me was electric, sharp enough to cut through flesh. I slammed the back door, the echo reverberating through the quiet house, leaving my family in stunned silence. I didn't know where I would go, but I didn't care. The truth hung heavily in the air, and I felt my anger morphing into clarity. I was done being the silent one. I would not let money define our family's love or loyalty. As the air rushed around me, I was determined to expose everything they tried to hide, and little did they know, I had a secret of my own, a revelation that would shake the very foundation of our family. It was time for them to truly understand what betrayal felt like. I had tasted the bitterness, and I was ready to unleash it all. I stood frozen in the living room, the remnants of dinner still lingering in the air. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic mashed potatoes clung to the walls, but it felt suffocating now, like an invisible weight pressing down on me. It was a family meal meant to bring us together, but instead, it felt like the kindling for a fire waiting to ignite. My heart raced in my chest as I replayed the last few minutes in my mind, how my sister had casually dropped the bomb about the inheritance. I felt my face flush with anger. How could they favor her like that? My hands shook slightly as I clutched the edge of the dining table, feeling the cool wood beneath my fingertips, trying to ground myself amid the swirling emotions. "Why haven't you said anything about the will, Mother?" I finally managed to voice, my tone sharper than I intended. It echoed off the walls, making my family turn their eyes toward me. My mother sat at the head of the table, her face a mix of gentle concern and maternal disappointment. "Honey, I just thought," she began, but I couldn't let her finish. "No, you thought what?" I snapped, feeling the tension crackle in the air. "You thought that you could just leave everything to her without even discussing it with me? Did you consider how I might feel about it?" My brother crossed his arms tightly, his expression unreadable. He always had been the neutral one, the one who never intervened in family squabbles, but today, it felt as though he was silently choosing sides. "Come on, Amelia. It's just money, you know how they are." He waved his hand dismissively, the flick of his wrist almost mocking. "Just money?" I echoed, my voice rising. I could feel my chest tighten with every word. "It's not just money, it's about what that money represents. I have given so much to this family, but it feels like it means nothing compared to what she has done." I glanced urgently at my sister, her smug expression only fueled my anger. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, her smile practically radiating superiority. "You just need to get over it, Amelia," she said flippantly, her voice dripping with a sweet yet condescending tone. "Maybe if you had worked harder, you could have been favored too, but let's be honest, you have always been the one chasing shadows." I went pale. The way her words cut through the air made my legs feel wobbly. How had it come to this? I could hardly believe the audacity in her voice. My father, who had been sitting quietly, finally cleared his throat, the sound echoing through the thick silence filled with unspoken words. "I think we all need to calm down," he said, his brow furrowed with concern. "This is not how I wanted tonight to go. We're a family." "A family?" I shot back, my body tensing with disbelief. "A family that cuts each other off when it comes to money? A family that chooses favorites over showing appreciation for each other?" My breath came in short, sharp bursts. "You all have chosen her over me. I feel completely abandoned." "Stop acting like a victim," my sister hissed, her eyes narrowing. "You don't know what I have had to do to get where I am. Just because you refuse to see things from my position doesn't mean you are entitled to anything." The atmosphere thickened, and I felt the walls closing in on me like a black cloud of despair. I could sense my mother's discomfort, her mouth opening and closing silently, trying to decide whether to intervene or stay neutral. Her silence hurt more than anything she could have said. Tears welled up in my eyes as I felt the familiar sting of betrayal. That is when my grandfather, who had been quietly watching from the corner of the living room, finally spoke. "The truth is, neither of you should have to feel this way, but it's happening, isn't it?" he murmured, his voice gravelly yet pained. "This family already has too much drama. You act like children instead of the adults you are." I caught my brother's eyes, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of understanding. "Grandfather is right," he said slowly, almost like he was testing the waters. "We need to figure this out without tearing each other apart." "Easier said than done," I muttered bitterly, pushing away from the table. My heart raced, pounding behind my ribcage as I turned on my heel to storm out of the room. The air felt electric, tangling with the tension we had built like a ticking time bomb, ready to explode. "Where do you think you are going?" my mother called after me, her voice firm but tinged with worry. "Amelia, don't walk away." "Why?" I turned around, hands on my hips, fury erupting like a geyser. "So you can pretend everything is fine when it's clearly not. You just bury your head in the sand, and I won't let you do that anymore." My sister laughed, an irritating sound that grated on my nerves. "Oh, please, like you're making things any better. What are you going to do? Tell everyone about how unfair it is? Cry about it until it fixes itself?" "Shut up," I screamed, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. I had never raised my voice like this in my life, but the feeling of betrayal consumed me. "I am tired of living in your shadow, always being the one who has to fight for every drop of consideration. I deserve my piece of this family too. That is not how it works," my sister yelled back, leaning over the table toward me, a flicker of anger igniting in her eyes. "You should have thought of that before you decided to chase dreams instead of reality. You chose this life, not me." Before I could respond, the heavy glass door to the backyard swung open, a cool breeze sweeping in, almost seeming to carry away the charged atmosphere. It was my grandmother. She surveyed the chaos, her silver hair glinting under the overhead lights, her eyes full of wisdom and weariness. "Enough," she said firmly but softly. The authority in her voice halted everyone and commanded our attention. "We must remember where we came from and what our family stands for. Every time you speak to each other like this, it chips away at the foundation we have built together." I felt my shoulders slump, the tension momentarily easing as I absorbed her words. The love and warmth I remembered flooded back, and I could nearly feel the family bond we had once cared for so deeply. But my sister broke the moment. "I don't need this family, especially when they constantly choose her over me. I would rather be cut off," she spat, the words like venom. That is when a chilling thought popped into my head. A thought so immense, it momentarily silenced the anger swirling within me. What if I exposed the truth? What if I revealed the secrets I had kept close to my heart, the unfairness I had lived with all these years, and the damning decisions made behind closed doors? The enormity of that idea made my chest tighten again, but this time with a different kind of thrill. I could feel the tides shifting beneath me. "Maybe you will get cut off," I said slowly, feeling a surge of determination course through me. "Would you still want to be their favorite then? Because I don't plan to let this go so easily." And with that, I turned and walked out, head held high, the door slamming behind me, leaving them engulfed in silence. I felt exhilaration and fear intertwining within me as I walked down the hallway, my heart still pounding. This wasn't just a quarrel anymore. This was the beginning of something much larger. I had finally found my voice, and my journey toward justice had only just begun. I stood in the living room, the smell of freshly baked cookies swirling around me, mingling with the scent of my mother's favorite lavender air freshener, and creating a homey atmosphere that felt increasingly foreign. The laughter drifting from the kitchen, where my sister and my mother were making a joyful noise, brought a fresh wave of anger bubbling to the surface. I could hear them giggling as my sister teased our mother about her outdated cooking skills. I felt an icy grip clenching my heart because I knew that all this happiness was built on the ruins of my own despair. Not long before everything changes, I thought, crossing my arms defensively, my fingers tapping a nervous rhythm against my elbows. Just then, my father stepped into the room with his newspaper, the heavy paper rustling in the quiet. He caught sight of me standing there like a statue, and for a moment an understanding flickered between us, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "You okay there?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. I forced a smile that felt completely hollow. "Just thinking," I replied, my voice tighter than it should have been. "About what? Have you figured out what you want that will make you happy?" he asked, that teasing lilt to his voice that always used to make me feel special. But this time, it made my insides twist. "I think I know what would make me happy," I thought but didn't say. "I think it's finally putting this family in its place." Just then, my sister burst into the living room, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Mom is convinced she makes the best chocolate chip cookies ever, so she is holding a taste test. I don't know how one person can be so deluded." My mother's laughter trailed behind her as she stepped in after my sister, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel, her cheeks flushed from the heat and the delight of the moment. "Well, if anyone is going to be the judge, of course it is going to be me," she beamed, brushing her hair behind her ear. I realized with a sharp pang how lively and engaged she was, how she had always chosen my sister over me. Maybe I should help out more, I thought, but I quickly dismissed it. For as long as I could remember, the joy I used to engender in my family had just slipped through my fingers like sand. "You know," my sister continued, rolling her eyes, "the only reason you think they are the best is that they are your cookies." She flopped onto the couch beside me, the energy spilling over in leaps and bounds. I absently glanced at the kitchen where my mother was already dishing out another tray, oblivious to the undercurrents swirling between us. "Aren't you a little too old for this?" I croaked out just to stir a reaction. "What happened to your seasoning goods? Did you forget them in the pantry next to your charm?" She kicked back, her laughter ringing like a bell, the invulnerability of her presence stinging. "Oh please," she retorted, shaking her head. "Jealousy doesn't look good on you." My hands started trembling, but I swallowed down the rage that wanted to spill out. "This isn't about jealousy," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I just want you to realize that you could be doing better." "Doing better?" She shot back, her eyes narrowing, her laughter vanishing. "You mean doing my job more like you do the chores no one else wants to do?" In that moment, the room grew heavy with tension. "That isn't true, and you know it," I said, my temper flaring. All the blissful memories of sisterhood began to unravel, revealing hidden thorns that dug deep. "The only thing I am jealous of is the love everyone seems to shower on you." My mother entered the room again, completely unaware of the storm brewing. "Come on, you two, we are a family. No fighting, remember? We should be celebrating something or other." My mother smiled, but her words felt like a facade covering the truth we all tried so desperately to ignore. The vulnerability of my position made my stomach twist. I had long since decided that I would no longer let the imbalances slide. I was tired of feeling overlooked, of my family seeing me as nothing more than a shadow to my sister's spotlight. "Are you seriously going to sit this one out?" my sister asked, her tone sharper, almost mocking. "What, did you forget how to have fun? Sorry, I know that wouldn't appeal to you since you clearly have an unhealthy fixation on how I live my life." I felt my heart racing, and before I could think better of it, I shot back. "It's not my life I am bothered about, it is my inheritance." The words left my lips like a slap, freezing the moment in place. "What did you just say?" My mother's tone shifted instantly, anger and disbelief flashing across her face. "That is completely unfair. You know how hard we have worked to keep this family together." My sister's face paled ever so slightly, her imposing confidence faltering. I continued, a surge of empowerment coursing through me. "Unfair? Who decided you were going to be the favorite? I never even stood a chance, did I?" The air grew thick and silent, causing my voice to crack under the weight of that harsh reality. "You would even choose them over me." My mother raised her voice, and for the first time I caught a glimpse of anger etched in her features. "How dare you? You cannot be serious." "Am I not allowed to vent my feelings?" I shot back defiantly. "Am I not allowed to feel neglected while you all shower her with praise? Do you seriously think that I am fine watching you both throw your frivolous dreams in my face?" My hands were shaking in disbelief at my raw nerve. An uncomfortable silence blanketed the room, the laughter dissipating. My mother took a deep breath, slowly exhaling like a deflating balloon. "That is enough, it is not about favorites," she urged, her tone growing desperate. "It is about love and support, and I thought we were past this." "Past this?" My sister stepped in, eyes blinking too wide for comfort, as if processing everything I had just thrown down. "You are accusing us both of what? You think I have it easy?" The challenge in her tone brought a rush of satisfaction. "You don't have to do anything but be the cheerful daughter. People adore you." My heart began racing. This was the clash I had longed for. Better to keep that disappearing act just the same. If favorites were crimes, you all would be loaded with warrants. My mother crossed her arms, eyebrows furrowing together in disbelief, her gaze hardening. "What do you want from us?" "I want to be valued." I shouted, the frustration gushing forth. "I want to be seen for what I can bring instead of the shame of being second best in my own home." There it was. I had broken through that wall, and I felt alive. The weight of the years of neglect lifted slightly, leaving behind a strange mix of triumph and vulnerability. "But you have always been valued," my mother protested, her voice rising, eyes glistening, though she seemed unyielding. "It is not our fault that you would rather hide in the shadows." My hands balled into fists, heat radiating outwards. I felt like I was ready to explode. "Is that what I am doing? Hiding? You always shy away from the crowd when we gather," my sister added, the urgency in her voice replaced by veiled defiance. "Why must everything always be so petty? It doesn't matter who gets what." This was it, the moment of reckoning I had needed. The epiphany I had waited for all these years just to get here, and now, here we were, a family divided by perception, pushed by my determination. "No, it matters. It all matters greatly," I replied, my heart racing, gaze now burning with conviction. "It's about unfairness and what you both deem as worthless." I could feel the resistance against my words, the tightening in the execution of each glance, as if every fiber of my family was clutching to preserve an old wound. "You are acting selfishly," my sister replied darkly, crossing her arms defiantly. "You can't just say that." "Oh, but I can," I said, forcing my voice down, struggling to keep the emotion in check. "The inheritance, the property, the moments, all those joyous smiles shared, every single memory used against me like a knife." I was bursting, letting my pain be known. "Who has benefited more from this family's wealth? Not me," I said softly. "Never me. This is going nowhere." My mother exclaimed, shaking her head. Yet my heart was set on the truth, the reality that had stung for too long, festered too deep. I could feel my conviction crystallizing with each heartbeat. "I just want a piece of what you value," I stated. Each word reverberated like a drum demanding consideration. "And I will not stop until I get it." The intensity hung in the air, palpable and heavy. My sister and mother exchanged glances, all the bravado suddenly threatening to crumble, leaving nothing but raw vulnerability in its wake. "You have no clue about family loyalty," my sister tried to shoot back, but I could hear the quiver in her voice, the fading confidence swirling into uncertainty. "Maybe you should think about what it means to betray the ones you love." "I have loved you both for long enough," I exclaimed, my heart pounding even more ferociously. breathing out the inner jealousy and hurt. Maybe it's time I start loving myself more. With that, I turned and strode out of the living room, slamming the door behind me. The sound echoed like thunder, each ounce of tension I felt filled beyond the walls. I caught the shocked expressions of both my mother and sister behind the door, frozen in disbelief. As I leaned against the door, my chest heaving, it struck me, perhaps I had finally broken the cycle. Perhaps the fear that lingered in the air was nothing compared to the fire that had just ignited within me. Outside in the stillness of Hastings Creek, I took a deep breath, needing the cool night air to cool the flames that raged inside me. I would not let that be the end. I felt driven, ignited by the new purpose coursing through my veins. I will take what is rightfully mine, I thought, determination hardening my resolve as I plotted my next move. The war had only just begun, and I would not lose. I stood there in the dimly lit kitchen, the smell of burnt toast hanging in the air, mingling with the tension that crackled around us. My sister leaned against the counter, arms folded, her expression perfectly sculpted into one of cold indifference. My mother was seated at the dinner table, her hands shaking slightly as she read over the letter that had changed everything for our family. It was just a piece of paper, yet it felt more like a bombshell drop, something that shook the very foundation of our lives. I could still see the words in my mind, the sum of money that was mentioned, the $50,000 that was to be divided among us, a sum that held within it a world of hurt, anger, and betrayal. "Do you even care?" I snapped, breaking the silence that had stretched unnaturally, like a rubber band ready to snap. My voice was louder than I intended, echoing off the walls that had seen too many family arguments. I stepped closer, the distance between us feeling charged, like I could physically slice the tension with a knife. My sister rolled her eyes, a familiar gesture that had grown all too irritating. "Really? You're going to act like a child over a stupid letter? Mom didn't even want us to look at this now." She waved her hand dismissively, as if the letter's implications were insignificant, just another pile of dust to sweep away. "My mother deserves to know what our grandfather left behind," I argued, crossing my arms defensively. I could feel heat rising to my cheeks, a rush of emotions bubbling up, an overwhelming blend of hurt and indignation swirling inside me. "You did not even care to acknowledge that he specifically wanted us to talk about it together." "Talk? What is there to talk about?" My sister shot back, pushing herself off the counter and stepping firmly toward me. The distance between us had closed, and suddenly we were face to face, the family ties that once felt like comfort now transformed into shackles of anger. "This is not a family treasure hunt, Amelia. Grandfather made his choices, and maybe we should respect that." I paused, my heart pounding. Grandfather's passing was still fresh, the grief mingling with resentment and anger in an uneasy concoction. I felt betrayed, like I had not only lost him but lost the chance for any sort of unity that may have existed. Everybody was so eager to treat this as an inheritance instead of the loss of a beloved figure. It was like a dagger stabbing through my heart, reopening the wound every time we spoke about it. "Do you not see what he did? He chose favorites again, just like always." I could feel my voice cracking slightly, but I stood firm, fueled by the adrenaline coursing through me. "He cut me off. He clearly favored you and pretended I did not exist anymore." Tears threatened to spill down my cheeks, and I blinked rapidly, refusing to let them fall. My sister's eyes narrowed, now blazing with a mixture of irritation and something darker. "You think he favored me? It was always easier to pretend with you, wasn't it? The black sheep who was never good enough." Her voice dripped with sarcasm, biting deeply, like a fresh wound being cruelly treated. "Stop it," my mother exclaimed, finally looking up from the letter that had become her lifeline. Her voice wavered, laced with a sort of desperation I had never seen before. "You both need to take a breath. We are family. I have lost my father too, and all we are doing now is tearing each other apart over numbers and paper. Grandfather wouldn't want this." Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the letter down and took a deep breath. I could see her struggling to maintain control, the way her fingers fidgeted with the edge of her sweater. I hesitated, my mind racing. Did we even think about what grandfather would have wanted? He had often spoken of family dinners, of unity, of love above everything else. But the inheritance had brought the claws out, revealing the dirty underbelly of resentment that had festered below the surface for years. But he did this, he made us confront it instead of ignoring it. I snapped back at my sister, my voice rising higher than I intended. My frustration was boiling over, the flames of my anger licking the edges of my sanity. "He wanted to stir the pot, bring everything into the open. What does that say about us? You think he did this to hurt you?" My sister's voice lowered, a mocking tone creeping in. No, he did it to hurt me. You are just a pawn in this game of chess he orchestrated. Before I could respond, my father walked in, his tall frame casting a long shadow over the kitchen. He took one look at the three of us and immediately sensed the storm brewing, his brow furrowed slightly, the lines of consideration mixing with authoritative disapproval. What is going on here? He said sharply, his voice slicing through the tension like a knife through butter. Dad, we were just, I started, but he interrupted. No, I don't want excuses. I want to know what is happening in my own house. His voice was steady, but there was an underlying impatience I had come to associate with his desire for order. Amelia, why do you look like the world is ending? Because it feels like it is, I burst out, overwhelmed with emotion. This stupid letter from grandfather put everything in perspective. He took a side and left me with nothing. My father's face softened slightly as he rubbed his temples, the stress evident in his features. What did he write? He asked cautiously. It's not just what he wrote, it's what he chose. He chose my sister over me, I shouted, unable to contain my emotions any longer. He is dividing us against each other while he gave her $50,000 and made me part of the discussion. A stunned silence blanketed the room, heavy and suffocating. My sister's expression flickered, reflecting hurt beneath her layers of aggression. What do you mean by that? I am not the one who asked for this. You think I wanted this money as a trophy? I wanted an acknowledgement, a piece of what we had. Amusement flickered in my father's eyes as he cut both of us off. Enough! Both of you need to check yourselves before this goes any further. Your grandfather may have left money, but it is how we honor his memory that matters the most. He looked at my mother then, whose eyes glistened with tears. We are a family, first and foremost. I refuse to have money tear us apart. You would say that now, my sister spat back under her breath, her simmering rage beginning to bubble back up to the surface. You don't know what it feels like. You were never second best. The room grew quiet again, a thick, palpable silence that settled around us all like a dense fog. I could feel the walls closing in, the weight of my family's unresolved issues suffocating me. I turned on my heel, unable to face any of them, almost as if I were exploding with pent-up energy and darkness. What does it even matter? Nothing can be solved here, I hissed, moving to leave the kitchen. Where do you think you are going? My father's voice rang out, sharper this time. There was a finality in his tone that sent shivers down my spine. Far away from your drama, I threw back, walking toward the door and wrenching it open, feeling the cool breeze wash over me like a reprieve. However, my heart still thrummed with the aftereffects of a battle I felt powerless to win. With one swift move, I slammed the door, causing the house to reverberate under the impact, shaking me with the force of my own outburst. The shock of it echoed through my mind, and I stood on the porch for a moment, breathing heavily while the sounds of my family's murmurs trailed off into a distant memory. I had become the villain in their saga, seen as dramatic and incapable of holding back the rage I felt deep within me. But who could blame me? Who could understand the pain of being almost invisible? As I stared out into the night, my chest tightened up again, the realization washing over me that I could not simply walk away. I had plans, darker and more alluring than I had ever thought possible. Revenge was a dish that would soon be served, whether they liked it or not. Suddenly, the night felt more thrilling than terrifying. The darkness looming ahead promising the answers I had been yearning for. The sun hung low over Hastings Creek, casting long shadows across the backyard where my family had often gathered for celebrations. The air was thick with the smell of barbecued ribs and my mother's famous potato salad, but today those scents felt like a deception. I stood frozen on the patio, feeling the cool wooden railing beneath my fingers, my mind racing through memories that only twisted my stomach further. The soft buzz of cicadas filled the air, a stark contrast to the chaos brewing inside me. I had waited long enough. It was time to confront my family about the betrayal that had suffocated me for months. As I took a deep breath, I pushed through the back door, the familiar creak of the hinges like a warning bell. My sister and brother were sitting around the cluttered kitchen table, greedily diving into the feast as if it was their last meal. I watched them momentarily, my heart clenching at the sight of their laughter. They shared inside jokes, and their faces lit up like the sun, filled with a joy I had felt slowly robbed of. My brother caught my eye, a smirk playing on his lips, and for a fleeting moment, I imagined shoving that plate of ribs right into his lap. Look who decided to join us. The black sheep finally graces us with her presence, my sister said, her voice dripping with mockery. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. Just thought I'd come and see what the big deal was, I replied evenly, pulling my shoulders back. The way I held myself must have surprised them. I felt strangely taller, more powerful. I mean, it's not every day the family gathers to celebrate a what did you call it? A blessing from our grandparents. My brother snickered. Oh, please. Everyone knows our grandparents barely left us anything except a few boxes of junk. It's no blessing, just a reminder of their poor decisions. I took a deep breath, a knot forming in my stomach. There are things buried beneath the surface of that estate, things that could change everything if we had the guts to dig deeper. My voice was steady, my heart racing. I was veering into dangerous territory, but I couldn't keep quiet any longer. The facade of contentment they wore was almost laughable, and I felt an urge to peel it away. The tension crackled in the air as my sister rolled her eyes. What are you talking about? Just because you think you're some sort of detective doesn't mean you're right. You're looking for a conspiracy where there isn't one. I could feel them both watching me, waiting for me to back down, but this was my moment. No, listen. Our grandparents left behind secrets, secrets that they kept hidden for years. I took a step closer to the table, feeling the gravity pull me down. There's a reason they were so secretive about their wealth. I found something. Found what? You just want attention, that's all, my brother interrupted, placing his hands on the table and leaning forward, the smirk wiped clean from his face. You don't want to dig into the past. You just want to air grievances you've held onto since childhood. His words stung, igniting a familiar feeling of helplessness that I had worked hard to shadow. This isn't about airing grievances, I snapped, the fire in my chest rising. This is about what's fair and what's right. Don't you both see it? How they favored you over me? The way they treated you like the golden children while I was always pushed aside. Silence blanketed the room, my words hanging in the air like an accusation. My brother's face went pale, and my sister looked anywhere but at me. I could see the gears turning behind their eyes, but I was done staying silent. Maybe if you felt half as much as I did, you would understand, I continued, my voice trembling with the intensity of my feelings. I can't just let this go, not when I know there's more. I've seen documents, things that prove there's money we have never touched, like when they talked about a $100,000 life insurance policy they never revealed. It's not fair they chose to keep me in the dark. My mother stepped into the doorway, her presence shifting the atmosphere in the room. What is all this shouting about, Amelia? My heart raced. I couldn't change the story now. It's about the inheritance, about what was hidden. Amelia, please, I don't want to hear this, my mother replied, her tone desperately pleading, and the pain etched across her face was undeniable. I could see tears pooling in her eyes, and a sudden wave of guilt washed over me. But underneath it all was a simmering rage that couldn't be ignored. You are wrong about what they chose. Am I? Or am I just the one brave enough to say what we've all been thinking? I shot back, my defiance bolstered by the anxiety twisting in my stomach. My mother stepped toward me, her expression pained and earnest. I know it feels unfair, sweetheart, but you have to understand your grandparents' choices were complicated, she said, her voice dropping to a softer tone, laden with regret. They wanted to protect you. Protect me by shutting me out, by giving everything to them. I gestured wildly to my siblings, my throat tightening with every word. Do you think I'm unaware of what this looks like? You simply chose to ignore it because it was easier. No one is ignoring anything. My sister's voice rose in defense. You're the one making mountains out of molehills. Am I? I could feel the heat radiating through my body, a mixture of indignation and hurt. When I discovered the documents, I thought of us and how maybe we could all benefit from this knowledge, but you just want to shove it under the rug. Why should I continue pretending everything is fine when I know it is not? I can't believe you would bring this up now, at a family dinner, my mother said, her voice quaking. How selfish. Do you think this is easy for me? Selfish? You think I'm being selfish? You are the ones who have benefited from their love while I was pushed aside like I was nothing. My words were sharper than I intended, and I took a breath to steady myself. I glanced around, noticing my brother had shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and my sister's eyes were fixed on the table. I was breaking through, boiling down the illusions we had built. I have been holding my breath for too long, while you all laughed and went on with your lives. I continued, my voice quieter, yet infused with determination. I deserve to know the truth. Just then my father strode in, the confident sway of his frame filling the room. The atmosphere immediately shifted, tension crackling like static electricity. What is going on in here? His voice was low and commanding, a tone I recognized far too well. Amelia is creating drama over old inheritances, my sister quickly chimed in. It's ridiculous. My heart sank as I glanced at my father. His expression shifted like a storm cloud, casting a shadow over the room. What drama? Speak plainly, Amelia. I hesitated, battling the worry gnawing at my insides. I discovered the life insurance policy, the money they never talked about. Enough, my father snapped, eyes narrowing as though I had just spat in his face. You have no idea what you are talking about. Maybe, but I deserve to know. I raised my voice, the demand echoing around us. I have been treated like an outsider in my own family, and it is time I took my stand. I want what is rightfully mine. The silence that enveloped us was deafening, a stillness so thick it felt tangible. My mother's hands were trembling at her sides, and my father's jaw tightened, his gaze shifting between me and my siblings. The weight of unspoken words lingered heavily. Your grandparents were not perfect. They made mistakes. They chose favorites and left us with the fallout, he said, his voice finally lowering as the anger ebbed. You think you are the only one who has felt pushed aside? You have no idea what we all carried. This was the moment I had hoped for, the crack revealing their hands hiding behind walls they had built. Then tell me, I pleaded, frustration spilling out of me. Tell me why they chose to leave me out. Don't you at least owe me the truth? My father opened his mouth, but then paused, his brows knitting together tightly. I could see that I had shaken something loose, something he might not have wanted to reveal. My heart raced with anticipation. But before he could respond, my grandmother appeared at the doorway, frail yet resolute, wrinkles deepening as she spoke. What is all this commotion about? Her voice was weak but filled with authority, and I was struck by her presence. Grandma, I was just telling them, she interrupted me. No, let them speak. I want the truth. The room went still as I watched the confrontation build around us. Amelia thinks she has discovered something important, my father said, voice tight, as he wilted back a little. She turned her gaze towards me, her piercing blue eyes holding mine. And what is that, dear? About the life insurance policy and how it wasn't shared with me, that they never loved me as much because I was different, I admitted, my chest tightening. I felt exposed. The faintest flicker of something passed over my grandmother's face. Disappointment? Anger? I could not tell. You want the truth, but some truths were meant to be untouched. What we shared was never about you or favoritism. It was about protection and the choices we felt were needed at the time. You were meant to be sheltered. And I was pushed aside instead. I yelled, my voice breaking. I deserve to be heard. The tension in the room throbbed with urgency. I could feel my emotions coursing through me, raw and powerful. Suddenly, my brother slammed his hand on the table. Enough, this is ridiculous. If we had a little more honesty, maybe the past could help us face the future. Honesty? Is that what you want? I spat, the growing realization that nothing was ever going to be the same. You want honesty when you have created this hierarchy of favoritism? You have no idea. It's not worth it if it divides us. My sister stood up abruptly, her chair screeching against the floor. You don't get to dictate how we live our lives. You can just leave if you can't handle it. Maybe. Maybe that is for the best, I retorted, my heart pounding. Maybe it is time I break free from this twisted web we've woven. You all forced me into the shadows, and I refuse to let you control my narrative. I should have seen this coming, my father muttered under his breath, the tension in his voice a knife cutting through the air. We need to talk about this rationally, but I was done listening to apologies that meant nothing. My heart was hammering, adrenaline surging through my veins, pushing me to the edge. You make your choices, and I will make mine, I shouted, frustration boiling over. This was not the resolution I had hoped for, but it was a breaking point. The family I had loved and trusted felt like strangers, a betrayal that was impossible to repair. My grandmother took a step closer, her presence looming. The truth can hurt and heal, but know this, I do love you, all of you, but this fight. Her eyes met mine, searching for understanding. It is more than you see. I made my choices for a reason, and perhaps they were not the right ones. I stood there, feeling my heart tremble. But before I could speak, the words stuck like jagged stones in my throat. I turned to leave, unable to look back at the family that had once felt so solid beneath my feet. The door slammed behind me with a finality that echoed in the silence that followed. As I walked out into the soft evening light, I felt a mixture of freedom and despair. This was only the beginning, the darkness I had always sensed lurking in the corners of my family's history. There was still so much to unravel. But then again, in the chaos, clarity was coming. Their betrayal would not remain unchallenged. I would dig deeper, unearth every hidden secret, and reclaim the power I had let slip through my fingers for far too long. This chapter might have ended, but the story of our family was far from over.